Today we answer a myth that's been briefly circulated. Does the 3DS touchscreen have pressure sensitivity? Well, it's a resistive touchscreen, so obviously it works by detecting pressure, but whether it can measure it is another question. The one example people bring up of a retail game that does this is Nintendogs plus Cats. When using the piano toy, the keys actually make a quieter noise if you lightly tap them, and become louder if you tap them harder. But this is actually just a very clever trick. When you tap the keys, the 3DS microphone is also detecting the loudness of the tap to tell how hard it is. So if you blow on the mic, for example, you can fool it into thinking you're hitting the keys at maximum strength. But that's not the end of the question yet, because there is a piece of 3DS homebrew that claims to be able to measure pressure sensitivity with concrete numbers. And it does appear to be able to do so, as seen from me pressing on it with my finger. However, it appears to be doing this by simply measuring the size of the screen area being touched, so there are quite a few quirks. For example, pressing with a stylus maxes out the pressure value at around 120 no matter how hard you press down. And by lightly tapping the screen with multiple fingers, you can get the pressure value to skyrocket to the thousands, which is normally impossible with only one point of contact. So the answer to whether the 3DS has pressure sensitivity is yes, but actually no, but technically yes. The Japanese equivalent to the Nintendo Selects line on the Wii was called the Everyone's Recommendation Selection. The games came in these funky looking cardboard boxes, and the lineup was not selected based on bestsellers, but rather, as the name implies, based on player votes on the Nintendo channel, and mostly consisted of third-party games. The Nintendo Selects line would eventually be properly introduced in Japan through the 3DS, where it was called the Happy Price Selection instead. There are two versions of the Game Boy Pocket released. Early models did not have a power light. It was added to later models due to popular demand. You may have heard of Game & Watch Egg from the Game & Watch re-releases. It's part of Game & Watch Gallery 3 on the Game Boy. But the original unit is actually one of the more expensive units out there, fetching prices that are upwards of thousands. This is because it was based on an existing Game & Watch game featuring Mickey Mouse that plays in the exact same way. The Egg version was only sold in a few countries where Nintendo could not use the Mickey Mouse license, and as such has made it one of the rarest Game & Watch titles, even if this version would be the most likely candidate for a future re-release. In the first edition of Monopoly Nintendo Collector's Edition released in 2006, you can see prototype screenshots of Super Mario 64 in the background of the board design. This screenshot was also present in an early version of the Mario 64 box art. Kirby is actually not specifically named after John Kirby, the lawyer who infamously defended Nintendo against Universal regarding the copyright of Donkey Kong. Shigeru Miyamoto stated in a 2011 interview that Kirby's name was selected from a list of potential candidates, and while he did think of John Kirby while choosing this name, he simply thought it would be funny if the two had a connection together. Miyamoto also thought that Kirby was a more harsh-sounding name that contrasted with the cuteness of the character. There is an officially licensed LEGO Wii Remote that came in 4 different colors, one of which is themed to Pirates of the Caribbean. There are 2 different physical variations of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on the Wii U. The newer version adds in the Amiibo logo and advertises the Amiibo support that was added to the game in a free post-launch update. The original 3DS AR card has officially been released in 3 different special forms. There was the Giant Me AR card that was offered through Club Nintendo. The official Nintendo magazine in the UK included an AR card poster with their September 2011 issue, and the first 3,000 people who registered their 3DS with Club Nintendo in Europe received a numbered t-shirt with the AR card printed on it, that some people are now trying to sell on eBay for ridiculous money. And finally, in Paper Mario Sticker Star, you can do an action command when you first strike a weak enemy in the overworld to get 2 coins instead of 1. I legitimately did not know this until this was suggested to me.